right, hey, before we dive into the message, I just want to address the elephant in the parking lot. Okay, I know that you feel it. If you get here a little bit early, you don't feel it coming in. If you get here at like 9:30, you feel it coming in. And I know you feel it going out, and 11 o'clock feels it coming in because you're trying to get out. So last week, I know at 10:30, like before the service got out, there were no parking spots at all. I think we're close to that today, if not already there. And we've had our... I guess we can do that. But we've had our staff and some of our volunteers, our worship team parking. You know, we've given them permission to park illegally along some spaces here so we can take up less spaces. So I just want you to know that we're aware of it. We are having conversations about how to resolve it. And I want to give a few ways right now that you can help us out. One, if your family drives multiple cars to church, how could you eliminate one of those cars from the equation? If you got 3 cars, can you get it down to 2? If you got 2 cars, can you get it down to 1? So my family has been a 3-car family. Today, I made sure that my wife and son came together, and somebody complimented Carter for being early today. That's because he had a ride with his mom. We can't afford you to have another car on the parking lot. So is there a way that you can limit that? Maybe you're a 1-hour person, but your spouse is a 2-hour person. They're going to serve next hour, and so you guys are driving separately. Could you drop them off, or maybe even better, come and serve at the same hour, and then yay, yay, yay! That's what I'm talking about. Serve at the same hour and then attend worship. That way you're just coming in one car. We just got to get less buggies out here, right? We got to eliminate some of those. Here's the second thing you can do. Follow the instructions of the parking lot volunteers. Yay! Woo! This is great. I love it. If they're directing you where to park or how to exit, it's not because they're bored and just going, how can I mess with people, okay? Like we're trying to figure out a system here, so just go with the flow. Don't go rogue on them. Like, don't run over people. Don't get angry. You've been in church, okay? Like, just, exercise some patience in that. Like, if you're sitting, I know some people, it took them 15 minutes last week in this service to get out of the parking lot. Yay! Woo! Okay. I'm taking a lot of time right now to explain this, which is also part of the problem, right? So, but please follow the instructions of our parking lot volunteers. A third way that you could help is get involved in that ministry. We need more people, like to the tune of about 15 to 20 more people who are willing to be part of our parking lot team. That puts you on a team that rotates on a monthly basis. If you've ever wanted to tell people where to go, This is yay, see, yep. This is your opportunity. No experience needed. On the other hand, if you do have experience in like traffic flow and traffic patterns, because we probably have some folks in the room that are good at that could help us work through that. Or if you were good at Tetris, okay? We could use your help in solving this problem. So you can go to Guest Central after the service today, or you can contact Lynn Perigo. Here's her email address. Lynn is our connections director. So lynnp@cpcc.church. You can talk with her. We would love to get you involved in helping us solve this problem. It's a great problem to have, and I'm so thankful that you can share about it. But it is a problem that still has to be solved, because there will be guests who drive in here and then drive right back out because there's not a place to park. So we've got to figure this out pretty quickly. So just be patient with us, and we would love your help if you could do that. So for the last 2 weeks, we've talked about what it means to go all in with your faith. Here at Centerpoint, if you're a Jesus follower and you call this place home, then here's what we want to be true of you. And by the way, it's also no different than what Jesus wants to be true of you. We're not making this stuff up on our own. We're just distilling down what it means to be a disciple of Jesus, a follower of Jesus, and then give you some handles so that you can grab hold of it and integrate it into your life. So the first one is, like, we're followers who are going to connect relationally. We're going to connect into the life of the church. We're going to build relationships with other believers so that we can encourage each other and help each other on the journey that we're on. And we talked about this week one, that we're in a fight, not a fight against people. We're in a fight for people against evil, and we need each other to do that well. We talked about last week about growing spiritually, that you're going to take ownership of your faith. You're going to invest the time and energy and make it a priority to grow in your relationship with Jesus. And today we're going to talk about this last one here, contribute missionally. What does it mean to contribute missionally? As Jesus was winding down his ministry, he casted a vision for his disciples. Israel was God's chosen people in the Old Testament. They served a specific purpose in God's plan of redemption, mainly to deliver the Messiah, to deliver Jesus to the world. Jesus came through the nation of Israel. But in Matthew 16, Jesus stood with his disciples here in this spot at Caesarea Philippi. That's not the disciples right there. That's a picture I actually took when I was in Israel. This is Caesarea Philippi, and this big gaping hole right here is called the Grotto of Pan, or the gates of Hades. And Hades means death, so the gates of death. This was a place of false or worship to false gods, and so they would take people and offer them as human sacrifices by throwing them in this abyss to their death, to offer them as a sacrifice to appease whatever god it was that they worshiped. And so Jesus takes his disciples on a field trip to this place, and he stands in this area right here in front of the gates of Hades, the gates of death, and he asks the question, in light of all of these false gods, he says, "Who do people say that I am?" And they say, well, some say you're John the Baptist, some say you're Elijah, some say you're Jeremiah, or you're one of the prophets. And then he switched it, and he made it personal. He said, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter, always Peter who speaks up, Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And from that statement, Jesus casts a brand new vision. Matthew 16:18, he says, "On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it." Now, the rock Jesus is referring to is not Peter himself. It's Peter's confession of who Jesus is. Jesus says, on this confession of who you say that I am, on my identity as the Son of God, I will build a church. I will launch a movement, and the gates of Hades, the gates of death, will not be able to overcome it. See, death, you know this, it's our greatest enemy. And since Jesus conquered death through his resurrection, he stands victorious to lead us through the death. He stands victorious to lead his church past that enemy. Not even death can overcome the church. There is no enemy greater or more powerful than the church of Jesus. And the church is not a steeple. The church is a people who've been commissioned to be the physical representation of Jesus on earth. Like, we're to be love in a world of hate. We're to be calm in a world of chaos. We're to be peace in a world of division. We're to be hope in a world of brokenness. We're to be light in a world of darkness. If you're a follower of Jesus, you have joined the most powerful movement in the world with the most important mission in the world. Like, many of you are going to go to work tomorrow and you got an important mission there, but I want you to know it is not more important than the mission that Jesus gave us to make disciples. This is why we exist. We don't just come in here on Sunday morning and battle traffic, right? To come and sing some songs and listen to a message and then go back to business as usual. The church is not a meeting we come to on Sunday. It's a movement that we contribute to every single day. If you're interested in just attending a meeting and checking a box that you went to church, you are short-circuiting your faith. And that won't last long because you'll get fed up with the traffic out here. You'll just be like, forget it. I'm just going to do something different. You'll short-circuit your faith. My friends, Jesus did not take up a cross just so that we could come in and take up a seat. That is not why he died. Your faith is so much bigger than going to church. The purpose of our Sunday morning meeting is to be a catalyst for the movement of God that he's invited all of us to participate in. We've been invited into this movement to make disciples because discipleship is the answer for everything. There is nothing we are facing in the world that does not find its solution and resolution in discipleship, because discipleship is being like Jesus and doing what Jesus did. And if we're all doing that, there's no problem that we will not solve. Discipleship is the answer for poverty. It is the answer for hunger. It is the answer for racism, division, broken marriages, dysfunctional homes, addiction, anger, pride, greed, you name it. Discipleship solves it. If not, Jesus would have told us to do something else. But that's the mission he gave us. Or as we say it here, helping people find and follow Jesus, because Jesus is the ultimate solution to all of the problems we face. So if you're a follower of Jesus, you need to be part of a local church where you contribute to the ministry and mission of making disciples. Now, one of the ways that we're called to contribute to the mission is financially. The church is a nonprofit organization that runs off of donations. So when we pull our money together, we're able to accomplish the ministry that God has called us to, both locally and globally. And so when you give here, that's one of the ways that you're helping people find and follow Jesus. You're helping fund the mission. But the other way we contribute is physically. We give our time and our gifts and our abilities and our experiences to serve people. And so that's what we're going to focus our attention on today, not money. Yay! You're welcome. Now, here's the excuse I hear most often from people for why they don't contribute, and you may have said this at one time or another. I don't have enough. Okay. I don't have enough time. That's one. I don't have enough skill. I don't have enough ability. I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough Bible knowledge. I mean, you fill in the blank, but it always starts here. I don't have enough, whatever it is that you believe that you don't have enough of. I don't have enough is a limiting belief that will keep you from God's best. Like, this is a lie, and you're not telling it on purpose. It's just a lie that you're believing that's rooted in distrust and disbelief. So to work through this, we're going to look at a very familiar passage of Scripture today that if you've been a Jesus follower, you know this passage of Scripture. For some of you, it may be new to you, but I bet you've probably heard this story in some form or fashion before. And we're going to look at this story to see how that we can combat the lie that we believe about ourselves that keeps us from contributing to God's mission and subsequently keeps us from a life of transformation. So, Matthew 14, it's where it's found. Here's how it starts in verse 13. When Jesus heard about it, he withdrew from there by a boat to a remote place to be alone. Now, it was the death of his cousin and really good friend, John the Baptist. King Herod had John killed because John was in his business with truth, which is a dangerous thing in any culture. Herod was having an inappropriate relationship with his brother's wife, his sister-in-law, and John was calling him out. He said, "It is not lawful for you to have her." And rather than being convicted by truth, he just has his head cut off. The heart wants what the heart wants. And so Jesus, who was fully God, was also fully human. And we see his humanity on display in this passage. In his humanity, he needed to get away, to be by himself, to grieve his friend's death. So he withdrew. He found a quiet place to just be alone and to grieve, because that was important to his emotional well-being. But he does not completely check out of ministry and mission. He doesn't throw in the towel. He doesn't say, this is too hard. I just can't cope anymore. He just gets away for a little while, But here's what happens. When the crowds heard this, they followed him on foot from the towns. And when he went ashore, he saw a large crowd, had compassion on them, and healed their sick. Now, Jesus was grieving, and he took the appropriate steps to get away and just reflect and be by himself and pray, but he came back to the mission. He came back to the ministry because people were the priority for Jesus. People mattered most to Jesus. People were and are the mission for Jesus. And so even in his grief, he stepped back into the messiness of people's lives. He got up close and personal. He touched lepers. He healed sick people. He listened to them. He contributed to their physical and their emotional needs. And so see, there are seasons where we need to take a break. Like if Jesus needs to get away to take a break, then we need it no less. But we always come back. We always come back to the ministry. We always come back to the mission. If you're coming here from another church where you've been serving for years and you're just exhausted, like it's appropriate to take a break, but you always come back. If you're going through a difficult season, a challenging season in life right now, it is okay to step away for a little while, but you always come back. I just took 3 months off, but we always come back to the mission. We always come back to serve people. Verse 15, when evening came, so they've been in a whole day, the disciples approached him and said, "This place is deserted, like there's nothing around here, and it's already late. Send the crowds away so that they can go into the villages and buy food for themselves." Translation, we're tired, we're hungry, we are ready to get out of here, right? And Jesus has to remind them of the mission. He says they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. You feed these people. Translation, people are the mission. And this isn't about food. This is about your faith. This is about your priorities. This is about your limiting beliefs. This is about your willingness and readiness to step in to kingdom work. You feed them. You contribute to their needs. And they respond the way that we often respond when God asks us to do something that frankly we don't want to do or don't feel qualified to do. But how many times have you given God a but? Like God asks you to do something or you feel pressed to do something, but you're like, but I don't have enough. I don't have enough Bible knowledge to lead a small group. I don't have enough margin in my finances to give generously. I don't have any experience to be a buddy in our unlimited special needs ministry. I don't have enough skill to serve on the tech team. I don't have enough confidence to share my faith with my friends or my family. I don't have enough patience to lead a 6th grade boys small group. Whatever you think you don't have enough of is not a good enough excuse. It's not a good enough excuse. See, when God calls you to contribute, He's already aware of what you don't have enough of. He's already taken that into full consideration. He's not missing something. Like, I forgot you don't have a seminary degree. How could you ever lead a conversation? I forgot that you don't have enough patience to lead 6th grade boys. I wonder how we could grow that in you. See, sometimes God calls us to contribute to something because of what we have. But other times He calls us to contribute to something because of what we need. Because of what we need. See, he will put you in positions that require you to build some spirit dependence. He will put you in positions that forces you to learn patience. He will put you in positions that forces you to develop out this skill that he's already blessed you with. He will put you into situations that makes you create financial margin in your life. See, when we're forced to make some changes, it changes us, and that is the name of the game here. It's life transformation. So when you contribute to the needs of the church, it always contributes to your character. Every single time. It changes you. Jesus did not ask these guys to feed people because the people needed food. It wasn't even his idea. It was their idea. He asked them to feed people because they needed faith. He already knew what they were going to say. But we only have, limiting belief, we only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. We don't have enough. This is all we got. But here's the thing, Jesus was not ignorant of their inventory. He was not surprised by their supply. He was not overwhelmed by their undersized amount of food. He already knew what they did not have. He wasn't calling them to contribute because the people needed something. He was calling them to contribute because they needed something. They needed something. See, this was about what was getting ready to happen. Jesus is getting ready to hand this whole operation off to them. And so he's trying to teach a lesson in this moment. And he doesn't tell them to go get more. He doesn't give them a shopping list. He doesn't tell them to jump on the Kroger quick list and add some more fish and chips to the mix. What he said was so simple, yet so transformational. Bring them here to me. Bring me what you've got. 5 loaves, 2 fish, that's it. He wasn't like, you guys are totally terrible at fishing. Just bring me what you've got. And if it works with 5 loaves and 2 fish, it will work for whatever you think you don't have enough of. You don't have enough experience, Jesus says, bring me what you got. What experience do you have? Just bring that to me. You don't have enough Bible knowledge? Well, just bring me the Bible knowledge that you have. You don't have enough confidence? Just bring me the confidence that you have. You don't have enough skill? Well, just bring me the skill that you have. You don't have enough time? Okay, just bring me the time that you have. And so the disciples, they gave this small amount of food to Jesus, and I don't know what they were thinking, but here's what I would be thinking, like, what good is this going to do? What good could this possibly do? How far could this possibly go? Who is this possibly going to help? And some of you have thought the same thing about the little bitty gift that you have. What good is my little bitty gift of leadership in the church to help the mission of the church? You know, that there's so many needs. What good is my little gift of giving going to do in such a large church? What good is my little gift of encouragement going to do to help anybody? Like, people are so broken and discouraged. And it is true. It is true. In the grand scheme of things, you and I do not have much to offer. Like, we are 5 loaves and 2 fish kind of people. And so in a world of so much need, like, how much can we really do? And without Jesus, the answer is not much. Like, your contribution minus Jesus just equals not much. It's not much help. Not much is going to change. But what they did was what Jesus asked them to do. They brought it to Jesus, and here's what happened. Then he commanded the crowds to sit down on the grass. He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed them. He broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. Now, I just want to ask a trick question here, okay? Emphasis on trick. What special skill did these disciples employ? It's tricky, I know. Last week we were all participatory, okay? Peanut gallery here, come on. What special skill? Yep. None. No special skill. None. Now that we know the answer, what vast experience did they leverage? None. What immense confidence did they portray? None. They just gave what Jesus gave to them. They just gave what Jesus gave to them. They didn't give extra. They didn't give any more than they had. They didn't order Chick-fil-A. It's a Sunday. They just gave Jesus what Jesus had given to them, and it was obedience. But it wasn't very much. In fact, it was even less than when they started, because Jesus took it and he divided it up between 12 guys, and these 12 disciples just start walking through the crowds, handing out what little food they had. And here's the amazing thing that happened. Everyone ate and was satisfied. Everyone ate and was satisfied. 5 loaves, 2 fish. Everyone ate and was satisfied. They picked up 12 baskets full of leftover pieces. And now those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Now in that culture, women and children didn't count, so they didn't count them. So we're talking here about 20,000 people. 5 loaves, 2 fish, 20,000 people. Now, up until this point, please understand this, Jesus has been at the center of every miracle. He healed the blind. He healed the lame. He healed the lepers. He raised people from the dead. It's why the crowd followed him at the beginning of the story, because Jesus was doing stuff that nobody else could do. Jesus was front and center. But in this miracle, Jesus is not front and center. Jesus is behind the scenes. The disciples are front and center doing the work. And as I mentioned before, there's a reason for this, because Jesus is getting ready to hand this whole thing off to his disciples. And so this is a microcosm of how Jesus operates today. He's not here physically, but he's behind the scenes, guiding, equipping, resourcing us to accomplish the mission he's given us to do. See, when we do what's possible, Jesus does what's not. When we do what's possible, Jesus does what's not. The disciples didn't do anything impossible. They just did what was possible. They gave what they had been given. They just gave what they had been given. And Jesus multiplied it, and he gave it back to them, and then they gave it to the people. And everybody ate and was satisfied. I'm not sure that anyone in the crowd even knew what was happening. The disciples just showed up, and they were in little groups. And they just gave them food, and the people ate and were satisfied. The disciples, they did nothing amazing. They did nothing impossible. They just did what was in their power to do. Their contribution was simply to give what Jesus had given to them. And your job and my job is no different. We're not called to do anything impossible. We're not called to do anything amazing. We're not called to do anything miraculous. We're just called to give to others what God has given to us. And when we do that, something happens. Like he fills in the gap. And not only are people satisfied, there are leftovers. Leftovers. It's an interesting detail to add to the story. Like everybody ate. By the way, there were some leftovers, and there were 20,000 or so people. What's the point of the leftovers? But it's a really important part of the whole story. So let's just do some math here. How many baskets were left over? 12. How many disciples are there? 12. They had been there all day, too. They were hungry, too. So we got 12 baskets, 12 disciples. So how many disciples do you think got to eat? Okay, I was going to say 11 because Judas, but you're probably right. You're probably right. He probably fed him, too. 12 disciples. One basket for each disciple. They had fed thousands, and then Jesus fed them. See, this was never about food for the masses. This was about faith for the disciples. Jesus was saying, listen, fellas, I'm in this with you. So there is no such thing as not enough. Just bring me what you have. Just bring me what you have, and I will take care of the rest. And then, my friends, I will take care of you. See, when you give what you have to God, He always gives back to you. Your contribution minus Jesus equals not much, but your contribution plus Jesus equals leftovers. It equals leftovers. But I don't have much time. You just bring what time you got. And God will give you time back. I don't have much knowledge. Well, you just bring what little knowledge you got, and God will give you knowledge back. I don't have much experience. Well, you just bring what little experience you have, and God will give you experience back. Well, I don't have much skill. Well, you just bring what skill you have. God will give you skill back. He will not let you go hungry. He uses what we have to take care of His people, and then He takes care of you. See, when Jesus is in the equation, everybody eats. When Jesus is in the equation, everybody eats. This story is actually the story of every major contribution that has ever been made to the kingdom of God on the planet. Like if you just peel the layers back of any movement of God, just take any movement of God and start peeling it back, and at the very beginning you will find one man or one woman who felt the call of God to do something with what very little they had. And God multiplied it into a movement. It's the story of the YMCA movement. It's the story of the Salvation Army movement. It's the story of the Civil Rights movement. And it's the story of the Jesus movement. So, what do you have? What do you have? You don't need to increase it. You don't need to perfect it. You don't need to fine-tune it. You just need to bring it to Jesus. And He'll take care of the rest. And it may not change the world, but it will change somebody's world. And it will change yours too. Last Sunday, we had Baptism Sunday, and second hour, I baptized a young lady I'd never met, and we're back in the green room, and I was just asking her kind of, a little bit about her story, and how'd you get connected to Centerpoint? And so she tells me her story. She works at a local restaurant here in town, and there's a couple from our church that go there every month to eat dinner after they served with one of our ministry partners called Stepping Forward. So we partner with Faith United Methodist Church in their Stepping Forward program. So every third Tuesday, our church serves tacos to underprivileged folks in our community who come and learn some skills, some valuable life skills to help them break out of poverty. There's no special gift, talent required. It is just people who've received the grace of Jesus and then are giving back the grace of Jesus in the form of tacos. It's literally people feeding people. And so this couple, they've been involved with it for 3 or 4 years, and they go every third Tuesday, they go and they serve tacos, and afterwards they go to dinner at this same restaurant, and this young lady serves them food, and over many meals they've developed a friendship. And then they invited her to church, and she came, and she came back, and she kept coming, and last Sunday she went all in with her faith and was baptized. The only thing this couple did was what was possible for them to do. They just made tacos every month, and then they went and ate a meal, and they made a friend. And God used their contribution to change a young lady's world. And how many of you know that it changed theirs? Because it's just what happens. When you contribute to the mission of the church, it's just what happens. You feed people who are hungry with the gospel. You feed people who are hungry for good news. You feed people who are hungry for new life, and it changes their world, and it changes yours. You don't need to start a movement. Just join the one Jesus started 2,000 years ago. And see, your contribution plus Jesus will be more than enough to satisfy a starving world, and it will even feed you in the process. Because when Jesus is in the equation, everybody eats, and everybody's satisfied. Paul says in Romans chapter 12, verse 1, he says, hey, in view of God's mercy, in light of the cross, in light of the fact that Jesus took 3 nails for you, in view of God's mercy, offer your bodies as living sacrifices. He says, this is your spiritual act of worship. Like, this is just what you do in light of what Jesus has done for you. And it's not a have to. It's a get to. So we're going to take communion right now, and this is an opportunity we take every week to view God's mercy. And as you consider His contribution to your salvation, I want you to spend some time asking God what He wants your contribution to be to His mission. Is there a ministry He's calling you to step into? Is there a mission opportunity that He's laying in front of you, like Stepping Forward, or like Family Promise, or like Pathway to Hope, some of these ministries that we partner with? Is there a neighbor that He's calling you to build a relationship with, like He's calling you just to walk across the street? Is there someone at work He wants you to have a conversation with? Or maybe it's someone at a restaurant. See, in light of what Jesus was willing to contribute to your salvation, what are you willing to contribute to His mission? So let's think about that as we view God's mercy. Father, thank you for a cross. Now I pray that we would respond by being a living sacrifice for you, and that we would contribute the thing that you've given us to contribute to feed a starving world with the good news of your Son, Jesus. Amen. Amen.